What's up, fam? Elijah here. Welcome back to another episode of EXTOL WE, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are my extras, and I am the ordinary. The video that went live this last week was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and my boys, connected to another video 3.5 years ago in the past called Prayer and Praise. And the beautiful thing about life in Christ is that as we move forward in faith and maturity, that he introduces us to larger and larger giants, not to harm us, not to test our character, but to test our faith. My kiddos and I are in the middle of memorizing James. I pulled them into it. It's so beautiful to hear them declaring some of my favorite scriptures of all time in a time and a season when I need to hear their declaration the most. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work in you so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, for when he has withstood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. Now, it's so incredibly beautiful to see that then God constantly is calling us out into trials of faith that move us forward in the consistent actions of faith over time that build into us the fullness of faithfulness. That's why it's called faithfulness. Out of that, then, he progresses us forward as he has throughout all time and eternity within his children by introducing us to trials in a lion. And we kill the lion, and then we confront a bear, and then we confront a Goliath, and then we confront a desert, and then we confront a family that's rebelling against us, and we're going to lose the kingdom, and it just keeps going on up the chain until all of a sudden, and in this corner, standing at 13 billion tons, Leviathan versus Elijah. The beautiful thing about the Father's goodness is that he just keeps upping the trials on trails upwards to the success of heaven that keeps testing our faith to help show us what the Father already knows about our lives to be true. Now, back in 2021 was one of the most trying seasons that I've ever been. I don't do well with transitions and seasons that shift. And I was coming into a new house. My wife was pregnant. My back was out. It's some of the most intense back pain I've ever experienced in my life. And then I truly thought I may be dying. But that through that trial, that I said, Lord, you are blessing me beyond all question, that you're blessing me in my finances, you're blessing me with community, you're blessing me with this house, you're blessing me with children, like you are just blessing me, and oh my goodness, I am being dragged forward into death. I praised and I prayed and I remained faithful for that season, and God showed himself as victorious. Now, in this last week, Charlotte and I, as we go to bed, that we love to pray and to seek the Lord as we go to sleep, such that his presence and his person is the very last thing that we intentionally spend our waking moments on. And that then when we wake up, and the very first things out of our mouths is, good morning, Jesus. And we just spend time in his presence, his feet, abiding in who he is. This last week, I woke up, I rolled over, snuggled up to Charlotte, and said, good morning, Jesus, where are you? I could not find his presence, friends. And I break into his presence whenever I want, and I couldn't find him. My mind was anxious, being tempted with anxious thoughts. My heart and mind were running all over the place. I was trying to take them captive. Sit your butt down. It was not working. That I started pressing into then everything that I know to find his presence, and that out of meditating on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, these prophetic declarations from the past and God's faithfulness, that God broke in and pulled me forward into new revelation out of Psalm 100. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name, for the Lord is good and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. Watch the videos from the past, prayer and praise. But suffice to say, the teaching that Bill released is so instructive during that season that it says, lift up your head, O you gates, that the King of glory might come in. Who is this King of glory? Strong in battle, strong and mighty. But that we lift up our heads and we let our minds be seated in heavenly places where Christ is, where we are seated with him, that the King of glory comes in. That he then further released that the gates of heaven are these 12 massive pearls, and that pearls are formed through irritation. This encouragement that as we continue to praise in this limited edition worship before the Father, of praising him in the midst of our circumstances, that the King of glory then comes, that he is enthroned on the praises of his people, and that our walls are salvation and the gates are praise. His responsibility is salvation. My responsibility is praise. Complaint is the language and the worship of darkness that invites darkness to come into my dwelling place. But as I praise, he comes in, the King of glory, and sits enthroned on the praises of his people. And that then when darkness comes to try to break into my dwelling, it gets to meet the King of glory, strong and mighty in battle rather than me. So beautiful that then as that was all ruminating and running through my heart and mind as I was feeding myself on the testimonies of the past from that week, God lifted me higher still and said, did you know that you enter my gates through thanksgiving? Now think about this, fam. It's going to get super circular. It's going to get crazy. Just run with me as we lift up our heads in praise, that the King of glory comes into and through our gates, but that we then ascend to heaven and we go through his gates through thanksgiving. Now, what is thanksgiving? Thanksgiving is surrendered gratitude in pleased satisfaction before the King of glory in his sovereign service to us out of the desires of his grace. Now, you probably got lost in that definition. I did not. Thanksgiving is surrendered gratitude before God in his sovereign service to us out of the deep desires of his heart. That you're in this place of awe before him, that how is this possible that I am being served by the God of heaven as his child? I am so thankful for what you have done in my life. That is what enters us through his gates as he releases the fullness of his kingdom to us. We enter his gates with thanksgiving, focused on what we have already received from him, not focused on the problems, not focused on the needs, not focused on the petitions and the requests, but focused on this is every good thing that is in my life as a result of your sovereign goodness and desires expressed to me. Then we come through his gates. That's how we get in. And we then go further still, we enter his courts with praise. That as we push in further than into the high courts of heaven with confidence to be seated with Jesus in heavenly places as co-rulers with him, releasing judgments in the earth. Wait a minute, what's happening on earth at that exact same moment? Oh, me lifting up my head in the termination of the walls of salvation, lifting my head up in praise that enters me into the courts of heaven to be seated with God, to send him and his judgments to earth, even as I'm on earth, calling it to me. It's the ascendant lifestyle of Jesus as defined in John chapter 3. It's so circular, but it's so beautiful. I pray and release grace by the power of the Spirit that you can receive and know from the goodness of my Father's heart that I have received so that you can know him more in this place. Now, in that space then, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, with their whole process, again, go listen to that video, that as they moved forward in confronting the powers and the authorities that said, bow before this image that I've set up, they said, not having it, they found themselves in a very bad situation that made it look like Nebuchadnezzar was winning. Lessons that exploded out of the declaration then is that as we boldly make declaration out of the character of God, not even knowing like this is the will of God, this is what he's going to do. I'm telling you it's coming. 3, 2, 1, blam. We're like, throw us in the fire. We don't have to defend ourselves. God will, and he will save us. And even if he doesn't, guess what? I'm not bowing down to you. I would rather die than do what you say. That as we make bold declaration out of the character of our Father, that bold declaration blinds the eyes of ruling powers and principalities to be able to see clearly in what they're doing. Think about it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego make bold declaration, and Nebuchadnezzar flies then into a blind rage such that he goes above and beyond what he normally would, heats the fire to 7 times hotter than normal. He releases perfection of destruction for those who are opposing him and assigns to them his most powerful warriors in order to just pour on the gas. Why? Oh, his eyes have been blinded to seeing clearly by the bold declaration of God's people out of his character. Suck it, Satan. For this reason, the children of God make an appearance to destroy the works of the devil, and the entrance forward into that pathway is bold declaration out of the character of our Father that blinds the eyes of our enemies through rage. Now, additionally, the other encouragement out of that video in this season is that as they were moved forward and they saw those who were carrying them, these massive powers who were way stronger, way more trained in warfare than them, began falling under the heat of the oppression that darkness had set up, rather than saying, oh, God is fighting on our behalf. Now we can back out of this situation, avoid moving forward into this environment that is set up for perfectly destroy us. Instead, press forward into the environment that has been set up to perfectly destroy you, because God has prepared an environment of presence that is perfectly provided for you to party with the Prince of Peace. It's beautiful, friends, that as we see God then start acting on our behalf, destroying the works of the devil, that we can be confident that a context, an environment of communion with Jesus has been set up for us that is perfectly protected from any of our enemies following us, because it kills them at the door. Press forward because Jesus and the presence of God is waiting for you in the fire, and that once you are in the midst of that place of persecution, it reveals and manifests to the eyes of our enemies the manifest presence of Jesus that they were not seeing and couldn't break into 5 seconds before we jumped into the flames. Now, the thing in this last week then that my heart has become aware of in the difficulty of pressing forward into these environments that are perfectly positioned to promise our destruction is that we won't want to leave them once we're in them. The persecutors and the powers of this present evil age bind us and throw us into environments that are perfectly positioned to destroy us, but that it burns off our bonds. It brings greater freedom, increased encounter with Jesus beyond our wildest imagination, manifests his presence to the onlooking foes that are oppressing us. But after they throw us forcefully into those environments and we progress into them by our own choosing, the difficulty then is that they invite us to come out of the environment that they cannot go into, that we could stay in forever and just say, well, you want to come investigate us? Come on in, kingy wingy. But instead, he is saying, come out here. Could you please come out here? Come out here, because I can't come in there. Could you please come out of that environment and let me see and investigate the testimony of the blood of Jesus being manifest in your life to save your life past death. The difficulty, listen to me, the difficulty then becomes becoming willing to comply with the request of leaving an environment that is perfectly protected to enjoy the presence of the Prince of Peace beyond the reach of our enemies. How ridiculous is that? Now, God wrapped it all around in my newest expression of facing new giants that are testing my faith to the max. In these trials, that one of the most difficult things that I have is then not complaining against the Father. That I learned the lesson, now I get to learn it in a deeper way. Father, it looks like everything is coming unscrewed. Where are you? The devil is winning, and I thought you cared about me, and it's really hard to be thankful and praise you in a context of where you're not showing up and doing your part. I don't know if you struggle with those things. I definitely do. Now, here this week, he taught me a beautiful insight out of worship that I was leading. I was singing the song, "You Were the Word at the Beginning." And he broke in and just so gently corrected me that he said, "Elijah, I am the Word at the beginning, and I am the Word at the end. And inasmuch as the full expansiveness of absolute nothing, that the forceful oppositional power of ex nihilo, a void of existence opposing my desires from being expressed, were incapable of pressing back against my desires spoken through my powerful word of be at the beginning, Elijah." And all of the perfect chaos and crisis of hell doing its damnedest for all time and eternity with death as its champion, clear up to the last second of the 11th hour, 59th minute, 0.99999999999999999 repetitiously out into infinity 9, that when I act in the peerless perfection of my omnipotent, omnipresent person, which empowers my perfect peace to wait till the very last point to say it's all good, Elijah, it will be insufficient to oppose me in being so. I am the Alpha and Omega. The revelation, the correction to me was not to lend my lips in service to Satan's propaganda of spouting drivel into the universe and to the people that I love, that darkness is winning, that God is doing nothing, that the church is declining. What can men do against such hatred? Don't do it. That the beauty of the reality that my Lord and Savior, my God and my King, is the Alpha and the Omega, that he had the first word and he's going to have the last word, is that I can march to my death in a situation that is perfectly positioned for my destruction, and God is not breaking in, and that I can feel the fires of hell ripping through my flesh, melting it from my bones, and that my eyes are falling out of their sockets to lay on the floor next to my dead enemies as all of my blood escapes all over the floor, and that in my last dying thought, say, I will praise you. I will enter your gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter your courts with praise, because Jesus, you are the Word at the beginning, and you will be the Word at the end. And even though it looks like darkness is winning, I will build myself in the reality of understanding you haven't had your turn yet. So family, my encouragement to you is that as you take a bold stance in Jesus, ignoring your circumstances, the things that surround where you are standing by faith because he is able to make you stand, that you would make bold declaration out of the character of Jesus, that he is your defense and salvation, and that even if he does not save you, you will face the flames with praise on your lips to a God who will make all things good at the end of time as the Omega, as one who is sorely tempted and looking at situations and lending my lips to the propaganda of the prince of the power of the air and stirring up opposition against my Father's goodness. I would encourage you, do not falter in praise. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Lift up your head that the King of glory may come in and sit enthroned on the praises of his people. If you subscribe to what I am doing, then hit the button. Hit it and then get it. Hit the bell as well so that you get notified with the new content. I am a content creator. I create content on my way to the fiery furnace. Does anybody want some content? I know what it meant. That's why it's called contentment. If you love this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. Pray blessings on all of our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I will see you in the next video.